The spa. Charlotte sank into one of the plush velvet chairs in the spa's waiting room. She looked over at the paintings of landscapes that decorated the cream-colored walls. A picture in a thin silver frame caught her eye, a pretty watercolor of a house by the sea. Bundles of flowers filled the boxes in front of the open window shutters, and a small rowboat sat at the shore, waiting for someone to take a ride across the water. The paintings were dimly lit by the shaded lamps that sat in each corner of the room. The soft, warm light they cast over the entire space evoked a sense of calm in Charlotte. Her shoulders dropped, and she sank her feet into the textured carpet. As she continued to examine the room, her attention was drawn to the ceiling. She spotted a small crack above her, and she wondered what had caused it. The crack didn't hinder the ambience of the room, but rather added a little extra character, she thought. Charlotte's focus then went to the front desk. A petite lady sat behind it with her head barely reaching the top. Her hair was pulled back into a tight updo with loose curly tendrils that fell around her gold hoop earrings. The woman's mouth moved subtly as she chewed on some gum. She blew a bubble, which popped seconds later. She flicked through the pages of a magazine with a picture of an expertly crafted chocolate cake on its glossy front cover. Charlotte was reminded that she should dig out her old recipe book, as she wanted to bake a cake for her son's upcoming birthday. He was turning 10, and she could hardly believe it, as she could have sworn he was born just the other day. She sighed deeply as she cast her mind back to when her son was a baby. She pictured his chubby cheeks and tufts of hair, and a smile spread across her lips. He still had chubby cheeks, which Charlotte loved to pinch, much to his dismay. But he had grown into a charming young man, and she couldn't have been more proud of him. Mrs. Jameson? Charlotte broke from her trance to see the masseuse standing in the doorway. She had large, bright eyes and short, blonde hair, which both glowed from the lamps. Her lips curved up into a warm smile. "Hi, my name is Penelope, and I'll be taking care of you today," the masseuse said, and she gestured to the hall behind her. "Please follow me." Penelope led Charlotte down a long corridor. Green-paneled doors dotted the walls on both sides of the hallway, and lamp sconces placed evenly in between them lit their path with dusky light. Penelope pushed down on the ornate copper door handle of one of the doors at the bottom of the corridor and invited Charlotte to enter through it. Charlotte looked around the small but cozy treatment room. A massage table stood at the center with folded white towels hanging on the edge. Candles, which had been placed in various nooks, enveloped the space in a sweet scent of lavender. Instrumental music played from a speaker. The piano chimed, the oboe whistled, and the violins hummed, blending together in an enchanting melody. A feeling of tranquility washed over Charlotte, and she couldn't wait for her treatment to begin. "I'll be back in a few minutes," Penelope said. She stepped out of the room so that Charlotte could undress and get comfortable on the table. Charlotte slipped off her robe and draped it over a chair. She wrapped a fluffy towel around her body and lay down on her stomach. She closed her eyes and listened to the soothing music. A flute had begun to play a somber yet peaceful tune. Soon enough, there was a light tap on the door, and Penelope re-entered the room. She came to the side of the table. "Okay, are you ready to get started?" she asked. She spoke slowly and in almost a whisper. "Yes," Charlotte answered. "Great. Please take a deep inhale in and exhale." Charlotte did just that, and the botanical aroma in the air filled her nostrils. Penelope slid the towel down to expose Charlotte's back, and the cool air sent a light shiver down her. Penelope began to apply massage oil, running her hands over Charlotte's back in circular motions. Charlotte enjoyed the warmth of the slippery oil. Penelope lightly pressed her fingertips onto Charlotte's skin. She started at her shoulders, then slowly traveled down to her midsection, then back upward, repeating the entire process a few times in orderly, sweeping strokes. Her movements almost went in rhythm with the music. A piano was playing again, this time only a piano, with its light notes ringing in the air. Charlotte sighed in bliss, yearning to take a nap. She was lulled into a state of pure relaxation. Penelope then proceeded to work on the arms. First, she lifted the right arm and ran the oil across it from shoulder to wrist. Next, she took Charlotte's hand and pressed gently on the palm and each individual finger with the pads of her thumbs in a precise but tender manner. She did the same with the left arm, working the rich, velvety oil over Charlotte's skin. Again, she was careful in her movements, and Charlotte gave another sigh of content. "How does this pressure feel?" Penelope asked in a low tone. "Great," Charlotte answered deeply, sleepily. "That's good to hear." When Penelope finished massaging the arms, she proceeded to work on the legs, moving her fingers in circles around the calf muscles and down to the ankles. When she reached Charlotte's toes, she tenderly pulled and wiggled each one, moving them back and forth. Charlotte squirmed slightly as Penelope's caress tickled the soles of her feet. Penelope returned to the top of the bed and began massaging Charlotte's neck area. She focused her attention on some muscles that felt a bit tight. Charlotte felt her shoulders drop, as tension seemed to melt away from them. Penelope moved away for a moment, and Charlotte could hear her shuffling some glass bottles around on a nearby shelf. When she returned, she applied more oil, but this one had a different scent, herbal and slightly floral. But Charlotte couldn't quite identify it. She liked it nonetheless and breathed it in deeply. She felt so sublime. She could have sworn she was floating on a cloud. She imagined herself drifting away into a beautiful blue sky. This is so nice. I should treat myself to a massage more often, she thought to herself. She had had a rough week at work and had been in great need of some time to relax and forget about her worries for a while. The massage had been exactly what she needed. Charlotte's mind wandered back to her son and his birthday, and she thought about the gifts she was going to buy him. A new bike. He had been riding one an older cousin had outgrown and handed down to him, and it had definitely seen better days. Charlotte planned to visit the store later in the week to pick out a brand new one in her son's favorite color. She was sure he would love it, and she couldn't wait to see his face when he received it. Charlotte smiled to herself at the sweet thought. The week may have been stressful, but that was life, and life wasn't all that bad. She had a beautiful son, a wonderful husband, and a job she loved, despite the occasional pressures that came with it. She felt grateful for it all, but in that particular moment, she felt especially grateful for a day of rest and recuperation. She shifted her mind back to thoughts of sailing through the air on a wispy white cloud. After a while, Charlotte was brought back down from her cloud by the deep, gentle clang of a Tibetan singing bowl echoing in her ears. Penelope announced that the massage was finished. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Wonderful, thank you." Although Charlotte wished that the massage could have lasted much longer, she felt so calm and rested. "Great, I'll leave you to get ready, and I'll be back in a moment." Penelope stepped out of the room and gently closed the door behind her. Charlotte sat up from the table. She rubbed her eased shoulders and stretched out her neck from side to side. Her skin felt silky smooth from the oil. A new violin track began to play on the speaker. Charlotte recognized it. Perhaps from a movie she had seen, she thought. She hummed along to the tune as she did. She slid her arms into her robe, tying it closed with a neat bow around her waist. A few minutes later, Penelope reappeared. Ready for your aromatic bath? Definitely, Charlotte answered. All right, please follow me. Penelope led Charlotte out of the room, and the music faded out of earshot. They headed back along the hallway until they reached a steam-filled room with a large bathtub built into the marble. Red rose petals floated on top of the water, and citrus-scented candles bordered the tub. A small wooden table stood at the side, holding a closed bottle of champagne, a glass, and a bowl of chocolate-dipped strawberries. Penelope twisted out the cork from the top of the bottle with a gentle pop and poured out the pale amber liquid. It bubbled and glugged into the glass. Here you go, she said, handing the glass to Charlotte. Thank you. Charlotte took a small sip of the cool, sparkling drink, enjoying the fizzy sensation on her tongue. Penelope placed the bowl of strawberries on the edge of the bath. Enjoy, she said as she exited the room. Charlotte hung up her robe and stepped into the aromatic bath. The water shrouded her entirely like a warm blanket. She picked out a strawberry and nibbled at the chocolate. The sweet, tangy taste of the fruit mixed with the mildly bitter bite of the dark chocolate was such a treat. She took another sip of champagne and sunk deeper into the steamy water. She dragged her fingertips along the surface and plucked out a couple of rose petals. The petals felt satiny to the touch, and they released a delicate scent. Charlotte ate a few more strawberries. The chocolate melted in her mouth as she chewed. She finished up the rest of her drink, then closed her eyes, taking a moment to notice how the fragrance the candles emitted blended perfectly with the essential oil in the water. As she lay there, her mind felt calm and still. She thought of nothing other than how much she was enjoying this moment. To her, it felt like a little slice of paradise. Charlotte was roused from her drowsiness by Penelope's voice coming from behind the door. If you would like to take a shower now, please feel free. I'll be back soon to apply your face mask. Charlotte lifted herself from the tub and stepped over to the shower. She turned the chrome valve on the wall, and a jet of water rained down from the ceiling. It was cooler than in the bath, and it instantly refreshed her. She lathered herself with a foamy gel from a fancy bottle attached to the wall, then allowed the water to cascade down her body, rinsing it from her skin. When she was finished, she gathered her dripping hair into a towel and twisted it in place. She huddled her robe around herself before reclining on a lounger in the corner of the room. She breathed in the comforting, fresh laundry detergent scent from the robe's collar. Penelope re-entered the room, carrying a tub container and a small plastic spatula in her hand. Did you enjoy your bath? It was lovely, thank you, Charlotte replied, beaming up at her. Penelope instructed Charlotte to close her eyes and began to smear the contents of the tub over her face. First, she covered her chin and then worked the spatula up toward her cheeks and forehead. The mask felt cool and damp upon application, but soon hardened. As it set, it sent a slight prickling sensation over Charlotte's skin, which she found pleasant and rejuvenating. Once the mask had hardened enough, Penelope carefully and slowly peeled it off. Charlotte couldn't help but stroke the side of her cheek with the back of her hand Her skin felt gorgeously smooth. "Are you ready for your hair and makeup now?" Penelope asked. "Yes, please," Charlotte replied enthusiastically. "Great. Please follow me." Penelope led Charlotte along the hallway once again, and they entered a salon filled with women being pampered with a range of beauty treatments. An older lady sat across from a manicurist who was applying a pretty mauve-colored polish in swift strokes down her fingernails. Another woman was having her long black hair curled into perfect ringlets, which bounced past her shoulders as they fell from the curling iron. The expression on the woman's face oozed content as she sipped on a frothy coffee and chatted to the stylist. Penelope motioned Charlotte to sit down in a squishy leather chair in front of a sink. She draped a small towel over her shoulders and said, "Bryony will be over to do your hair shortly," and then went on her way. Soon a young lady with a sleek high ponytail joined Charlotte. She introduced herself and began washing Charlotte's hair. She covered her hair with shampoo and began to massage the scalp with a light pressure. She pressed her fingers around the hairline, down behind the ears, into the nape of the neck, her hands effortlessly sliding through the slippery shampoo suds. Once Charlotte's hair had been thoroughly washed and conditioned, Bryony instructed her to make her way to the chair where the lady who had been having her hair curled was seated earlier. Charlotte sat down and looked in the mirror in front of her. She was pleasantly surprised to find that her skin glowed from the face mask. Bryony took a comb with a thin, pointed end and ran it across Charlotte's scalp to section off pieces of her hair. She spritzed each section with a heat protection spray and secured it in place with a clip. She then picked up a blow dryer and large round brush and began to dry Charlotte's hair. Carefully raking the brush through each strand and blowing the warm air in a downward direction. When she was finished, Bryony held up a small hand mirror behind Charlotte's head. "What do you think?" "It's lovely," Charlotte replied, smiling at her through the mirror. Charlotte had never seen her hair look so voluminous and loved how the front piece flicked at the ends, framing her face. Bryony led Charlotte over to the makeup station for her final treatment. "Amelia will be with you shortly." A short while later, high heels clacked against the floor tiles and a tall woman wearing heavy makeup and carrying a kit box in her arms approached Charlotte. "Hi, how are you?" she said in a silvery voice. "My name's Amelia, and I'll be doing your makeup today." "Hello," Charlotte greeted her. Now, Amelia clicked her tongue and opened the box. "What look are we going for?" The two of them talked through Charlotte's preferred makeup style, and Amelia made a few color suggestions. "Okay, let's get started," Amelia said, bringing out a tube of moisturizer from her kit box. She squeezed a little onto her fingers and rubbed it around Charlotte's entire face, parting it gently around her eye area. Next, she added an illuminating primer, which she explained would give a dewy finish as well as help the makeup last longer. "What brings you here today?" Amelia asked as she worked the primer around Charlotte's face. "Oh, I just needed a day off," Charlotte said. "Work's been stressful, so I dropped everything and came here." "That's a good reason," Amelia said, now adding foundation with a sponge. She bounced the sponge across Charlotte's forehead. "What do you do for work?" "I'm a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital," Charlotte answered. "Oh, I have an aunt who works there," Amelia said. "Her name's Sarah Thomas. She's also a nurse." "Yes, I've met her a few times." "Huh, small world, right?" Amelia chuckled. She rummaged through the bottom of the box to find the correct shade of concealer. After the concealer, Amelia brought out a pressed powder which she dusted over various patches with a large fluffy brush. She rifled through the pot of brushes again and picked out a slightly smaller one. She swirled it around in a shimmery bronzer and tapped it gently against the edge of the container to remove the excess. She applied it in light sweeps, starting at the forehead and then bringing it down to the cheeks before trailing it along the jawline and blending it into the neck. "So, have you enjoyed your visit so far?" Amelia asked. "Yes, everything's been perfect," Charlotte answered. "Wonderful." Amelia picked out a blush and clicked the lid open. It was a rosy pink color, which she said would complement Charlotte's skin tone. She applied it to the apples of Charlotte's cheeks. After that, she picked out a glistening liquid highlighter. It had an iridescent sheen, which sparkled under the bright lamp on the table. First, she traced some along the bridge of Charlotte's nose and then across the tops of her cheekbones. Following that, she dabbed a tiny amount in the inner corners of her eyes and the center of her forehead. Amelia put her forefinger under Charlotte's chin and tilted her head back slightly so she could inspect her work. "Your skin looks stunning." "Thank you," Charlotte said, blushing slightly at the compliment. "All right, now the real fun begins." Amelia lifted the lid of an eyeshadow palette. Small squares of warm-toned colors in both shimmery and matte finishes lined the tray. She chose a light shade of gold and applied it to Charlotte's eyelids, moving the brush in tiny circles and patting motions. After that, she added a darker shade of bronze, so the outer corner of each eye, using tickling strokes back and forth across the crease of the lid to blend it all together. Then she got out some liquid eyeliner. She took a small amount on a skinny brush with a tapered end and used tiny strokes to draw all the way across the lash line. She started with a thin line at the inner corner of the eye and then thickened the application as she reached the outer corner. Her face was close to Charlotte's and had a look of stern concentration on it. Good, Amelia mumbled to herself, checking that the liner was even. She reached back into her kit box and pulled out a tube of mascara. She moved the brush around in the tube to ensure that all the bristles were evenly coated. She curled the mascara brush across the roots of Charlotte's eyelashes and wiggled it up to the tips. To complete the eye look, she combed through the brows, filled them in a little with feathery strokes of a pencil. Finally, she brought out some lip products. She smudged some pink lipstick along Charlotte's bow-shaped lips before applying a shiny coat of gloss over the top. When the makeup was complete, Charlotte looked at herself in the mirror. "I love it." "I'm happy to hear that," Amelia said. "Thank you so much. This has all been great," Charlotte said. "You're most certainly welcome." Amelia gave a wide smile. "Now, I'll leave you be, and Penelope will be back over shortly. It was great meeting you. Take care." "You too." Amelia left, and Charlotte continued to admire her makeup in the mirror. She felt amazing. She didn't wear makeup that often, but adored getting glammed up for an event or a night out. She made a mental note to write down the tips and product recommendations Amelia had shared with her so that she could try to recreate the look herself. Penelope soon returned. "Oh, you look beautiful. I assume that everything went well?" she said with her usual friendly demeanor. "Yes, thank you," Charlotte replied. "Everything has been wonderful." She couldn't stop beaming as she spoke. Charlotte had found the whole experience so incredibly relaxing, and she had never felt so pampered in her life. It had indeed been a perfectly blissful day at the spa. This has been ASMR Bedtime Stories for Adults by Lavender Liebert. Calm your mind, reduce stress, and fall asleep fast. I hope you'll fall asleep fast if you're not already asleep. Thank you.